Well, thank you all very much for joining us today. As Tori said, we're going to be talking about using your management system as a sales tool. So my name is Paul Van Meter with ProShop ERP. I'm joined by Chris from East Branch, one of our customers out of Connecticut. And let's get started. So as you all know, the machining business is extremely competitive. There are hundreds of shops competing for your client's business. It's difficult to differentiate yourself with better machines or promising faster delivery or quality, because everybody promises that. So clients and your prospective clients need to truly believe that you will deliver on those promises you're making before they will trust you to do a substantial amount of business with you. They need to feel like you can back up those claims of having great quality and great delivery with systems that will actually deliver those results. Your customers have audited and toured many shops for many years. They've seen anything under the sun, and they're keenly attuned to shops that may promise the world, but don't actually have the systems to back that up. So what your customer is actually really looking for is a world-class set of business processes and a system designed to make sure you can deliver on the promises you're making. And so by focusing on those systems when you're doing your sales prospecting, your demos, your shop tours and things like that, you'll be able to outline how you can manage all those specific details, the flow downs, the requirements, and make sure you can deliver everything as you need to. So let's start by sharing a little bit about us. So my story started back in around 1997. I had just graduated from college with a bunch of buddies from an engineering program, and we decided to start a machine shop. It seemed kind of foolish at the time, but we loved manufacturing. We fell in love with machining in college. We actually made cars. We made Formula SAE cars. And it was about the most fun thing we could ever imagine doing. So we wanted to keep doing it. We were all college students. We were fresh college students, so we didn't have any money. So my partner took out a second mortgage on a house he owned, and that was enough to buy a house via floor, manual mill and lathe, and a few months of rent left over. So we started knocking on doors and trying to find work. We were successful, thankfully, and about 3 years in, we had about a dozen employees, and the Excel-based ERP system we had developed from scratch was clearly not going to cut it. There was just too many details to keep track of, and we just couldn't manage it. So in about 2000, we had a bunch of software vendors come and give us demos of their products. Probably many of you are using similar systems today. And to be honest, we were really underwhelmed by what we saw. They didn't do many of the things we were already doing in Excel, like visual work instructions and being paperless and managing our cutting tools and our inspection plans and all that. So instead of hiring one of those or buying one of those systems and continuing with lots of spreadsheets, we decided to hire a software developer and build something for ourselves. We had no intentions of selling it to anyone else, but after several years, our biggest machine shop customer approached us and asked us to sell it to them. We said, no, we're not a software company, but they were very insistent, and I say customers are always right, so we gave it a shot. The results they got blew them and blew us totally away. And that sort of lit a light bulb that maybe we were onto something. So they started referring us to other shops. We did it a couple more times, and decided that there was a bigger opportunity and that ProShop really needed to be out in the market to help other manufacturers. So in 2014, with about 75 people on staff, we sold our shop and went into the software business. It took a couple of years. I had to transition for about a year, and to be honest, I took a few months off because running a shop for 17 years is tiring. So we started selling ProShop in 2016, and we've seen tremendous growth in the last few years. So that's my story. We'll let Chris take over and share a little bit about himself.
Good morning, everybody. So East Branch was founded in 1989 by my father. He was approached at the time by a medical startup company asking him to make some parts on the side. He foolishly said yes, and on the weekends and evenings started making parts in our basement. He bought a Bridgeport, he bought a Boyer Schultz grinder, and an engine lathe. So when I was 8 years old, I was sitting in front of TV with Whirligig converting parts, fueling the masking off the polycarbonate. So I literally grew up in the shop. Since then, we've slowly expanded, solely by word of mouth. We became known as the problem solvers. He kind of has a way in his head of looking at parts and figuring out how to make them. So we slowly expanded. In 2000, we purchased the first CNC, which is still in our shop. It's Prototrack DPM. Still making good parts today. But we've slowly expanded into some more advanced equipment. In 2003, I graduated college and decided, again, maybe foolishly, that I would do this for a living. So I joined the company in 2003 full time. I always worked summers and holidays trying to make as much money as I could for college stuff. But in 2003 is when I really decided that this is what I wanted to do. I self-taught myself G-code and taught myself how to run the CNCs. And that's when the company really started to take off, when we started adapting more of this advanced technology. In 2014, we had about 10 employees. And the company started to grow to the point where we needed something to help manage it. We used a couple of other different softwares, and always ran into troubles just managing the data and getting things to work properly. So in 2017, after talking with Paul, implemented ProShop, and I've been using it ever since. We've seen some pretty good growth since then. Last year we had 18% growth, which for us in this industry I think is pretty good. And in 2019, our on-time delivery rate went from 70 to 100% for the largest two customers. And that's really a testament to our team and to the systems we put in place as a company.
All right, let's dig into some details. What is it like running a shop in 2019? First of all, there's a very low barrier to entry. Pause, for goodness sake, selling a 5-axis for 120 grand, it's incredible. So on one hand, this is fantastic, right? There's so many startup machine shops out there, it's accessible, people can follow their dreams, but that means it's incredibly competitive. There's shops out there looking to keep their spindles full, and so how do you differentiate yourself in today's market? The good news for you when it comes to when these customers are actually going to visit these shops and get audited, that a lot of shops are really a mess when you look inside. They might have a beautiful website, but when you really get into it, they're not. And that's because a lot of shop owners are experts in their craft, right? They're excellent machinists, but they're not as strong as building good, strong business processes and running a company. They're still using spreadsheets or file folders and filing cabinets, and there's just too many details to manage. So that means things slip through the cracks. Even companies using these sort of, I'll call it legacy ERP systems, still have huge challenges with a lot of these areas, with lots of manual work. Things like paperwork. Cert management is often manual. First article reports take forever to put together and make sure they're right, and clients are rejecting paperwork back to you. So it's a weak point of many shops. Late orders are often a problem. I talk to hundreds of shops, and it's amazing how many sort of reveal to us, yeah, our on-time delivery performance is terrible. It's like 40% or 60%. So having effective scheduling is a very important part of an effective management system to share with your customers. Lots of shops are really not very tidy and clean out there. Customers will want to come look in your shop, they'll want to do a shop tour, they'll want to dig into those details, and you want to be able to show them that the heartbeat of your shop is really organized and performs well, so you can execute on their work. They will almost certainly send in audits, visits from the procurement team, from the quality team, and they're looking for those problems. And based on what they find, they're going to decide on whether to do business with you or not. So, in prepping for this, I talked with a former customer who works at a very large aerospace company, and he had this to say. He said, I've been in hundreds of shops. I can walk right in and almost right away I can smell the disorganization and the problems. And he went on to say a few other things. He said that you can't be effective without good systems. He said shops these days have to have systems. He believes you have to have certifications. If you don't, you're going to be relegated to a tier 3 or 4 type shop. And he's going to look for your KPIs. What are your on-time delivery metrics, your quality metrics, safety cost? And he wants to see the data behind that. So let's talk about how we're going to actually show them all that stuff. So again, as we discussed, every shop claims to have quality and on-time delivery, but if you look deep, they often can't back that up. So this is really where you can start to differentiate yourself by showing your customers exactly how you're going to pull off those things. So supply chain people and quality engineers are all very analytical, process-driven people at heart typically. So they're going to eat this stuff up. This is really where you want to spend your time focusing on it. So we'll start at the beginning and kind of work through the process. So we want to show them that you have very accurate estimates. You're not going to come back a month or two later and say, sorry, we messed that up, we need to re-quote this job, offer a new price. And they need to be confident that once you promise a delivery date, you can actually pull that off. Right? So you have a way to make sure that if you're quoting this amount of work and this many hours on these machines, that you can actually pull that off. When they place an order with you, you're going to do a contract review process. You want to show them that that process is robust, but really efficient. And that you can successfully manage all the details, the revision levels, the flow downs, and you'll confirm all those details back to them so everyone's on the same page. I would suggest you really dig into the details of your engineering process and show them how you are going to design the process to build their parts right. Defining all those details so the shop floor can be set up for success with the work instructions, work holding management, cutting tool management, and tools that are specifically chosen for their performance and reliability, so their parts will come off successfully. Purchasing is a huge part of a shop. You're going to want to show them that your process for managing all the purchasing requirements are really solid. That you're buying the right material with the right specs, the proper hardware part numbers. The plating specs will be right, the masking will be right. There will be nothing that slips through the cracks and jeopardizes their jobs. On the shop floor, this is really where the rubber hits the road. I would strongly encourage you to not rely on paper job travelers. They have a host of problems associated with them. And so if you are digital, you can show that the status of every job is available to you at any time. So if they ask, you can provide instant updates on where their jobs are at. You have complete traceability of who did what and when they did it. And you can be really fast to respond to changes. How often have customers called you up and said, hey, I need you to pull this job in. If you can't, I need to move it to someone else. So you need to show them, well, if you call me and say, I need to expedite my order, and this is what we're going to do. We have a process for that. Scheduling is, of course, super critical. And showing them how you can easily see the real-time status of all your jobs and how the productivity today is going to be reflected in your on-time delivery in the future. How you have confidence to make decisions that are the right decisions to make sure you're going to execute on their work. You want to show them how you manage all your machines and your tools and everything in your shop runs like a Swiss watch. And then finally, you want to show them how on the shop floor you eliminate tribal knowledge. That was a great talk up there from Westminster Tool. You do a lot of training. Employees can share their setup notes, their solutions to problems, and there's a free flow of communication between the office and all the shop employees. You got to talk about quality, of course. So you're going to show them how your first article reports are really nicely done. You're doing them at every step of the process. You're not waiting to the end to inspect their parts. If there's a quality problem, it'll be instantly identified, contained, and resolved. You can show them if you have in-process run charts, how you can monitor the quality through production and the quality department of all their jobs to make sure that there aren't going to be surprises on the end and you're going to have to scrap some of their parts and that means you're going to be late or not have enough to fill their order. Inspection isn't really much good without calibrated instruments. So if you can show them that you have really tight controls on your calibration processes, whether you send it out or you do it in-house, you have a complete history of every gauge that you use in your shop. If you are calibrating your own devices, and you need to calibrate the devices you calibrate the devices with, that you have records of those, and that's ultimately traceable to NIST. And you can show them that quickly and easily. When it comes to actually shipping the parts and providing all the traceability and the certs and the first article reports, you want to be able to show them that your article reports are not going to be handwritten, and that they're going to be solid, and all the certs you guarantee will be the right ones, and you can easily provide those. In our shop, we even had customers that we started, for many of them, doing what we call a master cert agreement. And we basically agreed that we would not send them the certs, but if they ever needed them, we would provide them instantly. Because many of them decided that they could get them from us faster than they could find them in their own systems, even when we delivered them to them. You'll certainly want to talk about your on-time delivery performance, and hopefully be able to show them with great detail by drilling into every order. Why were you only 98% last May? Well, it was because of these 2 orders, and this is what happened, and this is the corrective action we put in place to make sure that it wouldn't happen again. So let's talk about some of the details of the metrics. Document control is hugely important. You want to show them that when they provide you models and drawings and parts lists, that you're going to manage those in an appropriate way. They're going to be available just to the people that need them, and only the revisions that are current and relevant to those particular orders. You want to be able to show them that you track rev control. You can look back at history of every order they've ever sent you and what rev was in effect at the time. You want to manage your internal quality processes. As I mentioned, if you have a non-conformance, you need to be able to show them that you can effectively action on that. You can sort and filter by your most common causes. You can be able to show them what your actual scrap rate is. You can go into the details of what NCRs you have, why they were caused, who assigned them to solve those problems. And if you need something as like corrective action, you have a detailed process for that as well. Every customer has lots of flow downs and requirements of how they want to receive their parts and their paperwork. So if you can show them that you have a good process for collecting their requirements and then turning that into action for all their jobs, where you don't have to rely on tribal knowledge that someone knows that this customer wants UPS deliveries and this one wants FedEx and they want an ASA 102 versus not, you can dial that stuff all in and make sure it works seamlessly. Hopefully, if you're doing this well, your shop's going to grow, and you need to show how you're going to manage your team. Showing them that you understand the organization at a high level. You define all the roles in the company, all the metrics and the training requirements to be in those roles. You can see which employees are in which roles and how much training they have or still need. Those employees can go seek out their own training and go talk with trainers. Again, the talk on Westminster tool was super inspiring. This is a hugely important topic. And that you have a closed loop system, and as employees get trained and move into those roles, you're going to do reviews with them, you're going to monitor their performance and how effective they are at their jobs, and that can lead to advancements in the company. So we're going to hand this over to Chris for a little bit. He's going to tell us about his particular case study.
Yeah, so before I get into the details of the case study, I just want to point out the meeting that I'm going to describe was about 3.5 hours long with this customer of ours. So I'm going to kind of gloss over some of the details. The meeting was with our buyers at this company. So certain details we didn't get into because, quite frankly, they didn't care. But what happened was our 4th largest customer got bought out by an investment firm. If anyone has ever experienced that, there's change coming your way. The buyers were tasked with cutting down the approved vendor list. We were dual sourced on a lot of products. And for whatever reason, the upper management decided this list is too long, we need to cut it down. So we were visited by the senior buyer and the junior buyer, kind of to get an idea of the state of things, how we were doing, and what they were doing. So we had an idea of what to expect in the future. This customer was a really big key of our growth. The parts we were making for them were electronic housings. It was just a lot of hogging out. We had just purchased 2 Okuma mills, and these parts had long run times, very unattended. So for us, it was a way to really keep the machines running and make some good profit on it because we didn't have a guy standing in front of the machine. So we did not want to lose these guys. We wanted to increase their business. So what we did is we brought them up, and the first thing we did was we actually toured the facility.
Again, these guys are buyers, so they're not in a shop all that much. So what we were trying to do is kind of wow them a little bit. So we brought them right to the machines that were running their parts, and we showed, hey, this is one of our Okumas, but right next to it we have a terminal that has access to all of the information in the system. And it wasn't one of the situations where you just say, hey, we can access it. We were demonstrating. The guys were logging in and out of jobs. They were pulling prints up. They were adding inspection data while these guys were touring the shop. It's important to note that we didn't really prepare for this. We didn't tell the guys in the shop, hey, these guys are coming. Because the system is designed in such a way, everyone was using it. So we didn't have to do any extra work. We just brought them in and showed them what was happening. This is just another example of one of the terminals. These are stuck right to our machines. So, guys were running parts and logging right on at the machines. And the buyers had never seen that before. Usually they had toured shops that were paper systems and the guys were writing stuff down on travelers and that would get queued at the end of the day and they had to send it to somebody else to enter the data into the system. Here it was all live, it was real time, and they were actually seeing it happen. So what we ended up doing is we sat down in our conference room and we started to walk through some of the operations that actually go into their parts. Because again, these guys are buyers. They don't understand what happens behind the scenes, right? This is a 2-op part, right? There's 15 operations listed here, right? And what we were demonstrating to them was, yes, there's 2 operations, but there's all this other stuff that happens to these parts, right? And at each one of these operation steps, there's a process that we have in place to control it, right? We went through some real simple parts showing the visual setups. And one of the key things we wanted to demonstrate to these guys is, this is great for future setups, right? The next time you set it up, you know what you're doing. But what it also does is if there's a problem, you have documentation of what you did, right? So we can go back and start to look at what was the root cause. Hey, there's a scratch on the part. Well, I think I put the clamp here. No, we know what we did. So when we go back and start to analyze what went wrong, we have data to do it. And then we went through the basics with them. Again, they're buyers. They don't see this stuff on a day-to-day basis. Show how we tag our prints and how that translates into an inspection record. So we showed them all the stuff that goes into their parts, and we were demonstrating. This was live. We didn't cherry pick this stuff. We picked one of the parts that was running at the time, and we said, here's what we're doing with your parts, right? Again, they had never seen that before. And the thing is, when you're dual sourced on a part, your competitor has the same capabilities you do, right? Look at the stat yesterday on your RFQ, you're losing more than you're winning. So people can make the parts you're doing, right? So what are you competing on? You're competing on everything you do to inside your company, your processes. That's what you compete on, right? And we're demonstrating that we're good at what we do, right? It turns out that our competitor was using a paper-based system and had a lot of issues. So as I mentioned, they were downsizing, and there was some attrition. So we, in front of them, in real time, loaded their contact record. This happens to be ours. And we edited the personnel right there. And that did a few things. How many of you are in a meeting and you get a new contact and after the meeting you're like, oh, I got to update the system with this guy's new name. We did it right then and there in front of them to make sure the information was correct. And we ended up getting a few extra contacts at the customer. We got the new quality manager's name, we got a couple engineers' names. So not only did we show that we were willing to update things in real time and make sure the information was correct, but we got a little bit more information out of them. And we continued down, as Paul mentioned earlier, some of the requirement flow down with certs. Again, the guys we were competing against always had problems handing certs in, right? We didn't know it. They volunteered this information, said, we're always calling these guys, they never send certs, they never send the COCs. And we said, hey, let's take a look at this. We know for your parts, certs are always required and the COC is always required. And what we did is, again, in real time, this was one of their work orders. We said, we'll show you what we do for this. We loaded up their work order and produced a cert package in front of them in real time for parts that we were currently running, they saw running on the machine, right? So we were able to pull out the material cert, the approved print, and all the AS9102 forms in real time in front of them with one click of the button. And that made a huge impression on them. I don't know any of you out there that are willing to do that on live data in real time, but we did it. It made a huge impression on these guys. The conversations kind of switched. Like, what do you do like if we change a due date? We said, okay, if we're changing a due date, we have procedures to handle these changes. So this is an actual screen grab of my dashboard from Friday. Right, you can see it pushes some changes out to you. Said, okay, you change a date. Here's the notifications that our system sends in real time. Right, so this is how we can start to manage some of these changes to make sure that we deliver on time with good quality. Right, and they had never seen something like this before. So really what the outcome of this 3-ish hour meeting that was supposed to be an hour, we ended up becoming the primary supplier for these guys. Our competitor ended up being a secondary. If we were overbooked, they would use them, but we were the guys that got the first crack at the orders. The number of orders we received doubled over the next 12 months. And not only did they double, but the quantities on the orders doubled as well. And probably one of the best things is it postponed their quality audit for 12 months. They wanted to come in and do like a 2-day quality audit of the system. The buyer said, you know what, we're going to go talk to the quality manager. We don't need to come out for a while, right? So we were able to continue operating without interruption for the next 12 months.
Thank you, Chris. All right. Well, hopefully that's kind of inspiring. It's a great story. So really, this is not just about trying to sell your customers. This whole idea of having a really solid business process, your management system, it's win-win, right? It's going to make your systems robust so your company performs better. You're going to be able to provide better service to all of your clients. And it's well documented that companies that are process-based are more profitable. They just are. And that whole system will provide a plan for you to scale and retain your clients as you grow. So when we were preparing this, I want to share a testimonial with you, which just came in a few days ago. So in summary, when a prospective client is approaching you, they're coming for a reason, right? They have an existing supplier that's not performing well, or their scope of work has changed. They now need more suppliers than they did before, and either their current suppliers don't have the capacity, or they're just not willing to put more work in there. So they have an incentive to hire you as a supplier. So if you show them your systems and the data that you can actually execute, that's going to provide them with the confidence. So we were approached by Triumph Aerosystems just a few days ago. And one of their senior program managers sent us this clip from an email. They have used ProShop suppliers in the past, and they were so impressed by it that they are now seeking out more shops that use ProShop. And I quickly sent out a blast to all of our customers, and Jay and several other customers replied right back, yes, we're ITAR certified, we have AS9100, send us that list, or put us on that list. So it really can make a difference. Having a great system can really make a difference. So that's kind of the end of our presentation. Thank you very much for attending and listening. Hopefully that was useful. Here's our contact information if you'd like to reach out to us. We have a booth upstairs as well for the next couple hours before the show concludes.